Hello, my name is Chris, and I'm one of Ryan Gorley's partners in crime at the free software creative agency Freehive. Some of you know me as C.Rogers, aka that guy from the Inkscape project who does the Gnome release videos lately. I'd first like to thank you all for the tremendous work you've done to bring Gnome to creative folks like myself. Because of all your efforts, I can work on a completely free and open source OS. Let me explain a little of my background and how I came to choose Gnome as my ideal desktop environment. I'm a longtime Windows user. And with that came its benefits and drawbacks. Benefits mainly included using the same thing other folks were using software-wise. Most of the initial problems with Windows could be written off in the early days as something Microsoft would eventually fix later. Windows would slow down over time and require a complete reinstall to be usable again. No matter how you tweaked the registry or cleaned up startup programs, defragmented your hard drive, solutions were only temporary. As far as I knew, though, that was just how computers worked. I got used to living in service to my operating system, upgrading RAM and reinstalling frequently. I did that most of the way through my grade school experience. Graphic design courses at university brought a whole lab full of sculpturesque Macs. There we go. Sculpturesque Macs. Unfortunately, about half as many as there were art students to use them. When you could get lap time on one, the OS was pretty slick, but only somewhat less crashy than Windows. Additionally, the limited Mac hardware options offered little more than above average aesthetics to an aspiring designer at a premium price point. No pressure-sensitive screen tablet features for creative sketches, storyboards, mock-ups, or indeed anything else of value to a paperless digital designer, a problem which still persists to this day, unless you enjoy carting around a second keyboardless tablet to compensate. Spare pencils cost an arm and a leg, too. So I stuck with Windows on my Toshiba drawing tablet laptop back when Toshiba owned ThinkPad. This is around the time I got a chance to use Fedora Linux in my computer science classes. It was fast, never made you stop working to update. Oops. Sorry, can you see that? I seem to have lost the connection here.
Then do it.
We can see.
You can see it okay? Okay. Okay, start again here. This was around the time I got a chance to use Fedora Linux in my computer science classes. It was fast, never made you stop working to update, and was a stable, full-featured desktop which you could customize with something called Compiz Fusion to make the flashy desktop of some dystopian cyberpunk nightmare. It was awesome. But Adobe owned the creative market, so I stuck with Windows because, well, what else was I going to do? The world was made of compromises. After graduation and then some years later, Windows pissed me off for the last time. This was on one of my business trips to CeBIT in Hanover, Germany. If you've ever been to a global tech convention, there are three constants. Time is limited, there is no wireless bandwidth, and there are no outlets. And, well, of course, that's when Windows decided to force an update, lock me out of my computer while it did it, and subsequently run the laptop battery completely out, ending in the corruption of the Windows install. On top of losing all my notes an entire day at the convention, I spent the next 9 hours in the hotel trying to get Windows to reinstall and upgrade back to something resembling a secure operating system. There just had to be a better way. This is when I discovered Ubuntu Linux. I had already played with some Adobe alternatives like GIMP, Inkscape, and Scribus, using them in tandem to compensate for missing features in the Creative Suite. So switching to Ubuntu from Windows proved to be quite easy. To my delight, install was fast and simple. I didn't even have to track down device drivers anymore. Even better, I found all the old laptops I went through ran like brand new machines, even when they didn't meet Windows minimum system hardware specs. Unity was cool, but a bit buggy, and I had gotten along with Gnome 2 previously. And once more luxuriated in the Hollywood hacker UX design with Compiz Fusion, wobbling and exploding windows, and desktops rotating on cubes. Then I updated to Gnome 3. And I hated it. It was completely different. Nothing was where it should be, and desktops seemed to be hidden away somewhere. Where were my 4 desktops? Where was my open program indicators? Gnome took all that away and left me with nothing except my program window, which was actually quite good. I started to appreciate the extra screen real estate, and once I figured out how you could get anything at all just by hitting the super key, I wondered why I ever spent any time looking through program categories or trying to dock things to other things to keep hold of my most used applications. Hit the super key and type vaguely what you want, and it served up instantly. That's just awesome. Another revolution came with the realization that my coveted desktops were still there, but stored like a top-down list. I figured out that you could drag applications from one desktop to another in real time in the GUI, and Gnome would helpfully get rid of any desktops you cleared away. The animations were slick, modern, and made sure you never lost track of the window you were looking at. I could maintain seamlessly the position of one window relative to another, all at the same time. Using this like a top-down to-do list was very handy and supported a workday in which I might be designing, coding, animating, recording, illustrating all at the same time, like creating the Gnome release videos, for example. My process for creating the Gnome videos starts with a text-only script in the feature-rich, gorgeously minimalist default text editor gedit. From this and conversations on Gnome Rocket Chat channel, we play around with ideas based on the original script. This is where it starts getting good and where ideas start to gain momentum. Issues are addressed and final script is agreed upon. While the script is being approved and discussed, I start building the illustrations for the animations in Inkscape. Oops. Inkscape. There we go. And experimenting in Blender with new techniques for producing the effects and animations I want to include. In the first video for the project 3.34, my focus was on making a simple infographic style, which could be used for the Gnome project to represent members of the group. Taking photos from Guadec and avatar images I put together in simple character builder I put together a simple character builder in Inkscape, so I could quickly reuse and modify parts to make unique and identifiable representations of Gnome developers and contributors. Community software is first and foremost about the community, after all, so having representations which people in the project could identify with was of paramount importance. The second video was for 3.36. I wanted to add more animations based on some critiques about not having enough movement in the characters from the comments in the 3.34 YouTube video. New animations involve rigging character parts to perform things like typing on a keyboard, waving, or dealing with interruptions. This is done in Blender using the rigging tools, the nonlinear editor, the action editor, and the dope sheet. I mixed the music, the excellent voiceover from Karen, the animation, and the screen captures from a VM running the latest, greatest version of Gnome in Gnome boxes. And once the main animation is done, I go add a bunch of little extra Easter eggs for those keen on overdone jokes. Once the video is done, I send out a draft of the final and make any changes that folks would like to see. Once everyone's happy with the result, I render the final version to go up on Gnome's YouTube channel and to collect eyeballs and compliments for all the hard work done by the Gnome team. And I gotta say, after getting to play with the new version early and work with those who brought it to us, it does actually feel like a celebration, even despite some, shall we say, overzealous KDE and Windows party crashers. I'd like to conclude with a huge thank you to all of you in the Gnome project. You're the reason I can work in a pain-free, modern, ahead-of-the-curve desktop environment with every convenience under one push of a button. It's my pleasure to use Gnome and my pleasure to share it with others.
No, come back. You have questions.
Just kidding. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so let's go for it. That is not the right. Hold on. Okay, hold on. So questions for Chris. Yeah, the talk was missing on Etherpad, Chris, so we're just going to do this live. So Chris, I have a question for you. So how did your workflow dramatically change from the first video to the second? What was like the learning experience of working with us as a community from 1 to 2?
I would say, I don't know if there was much of a difference. The difference was more in, we had done a video, so it was a little bit easier to, we could reuse a lot of the assets from the first video. So I had more time to concentrate on the actual animation. So like people waving and I probably should have shown the videos, I guess, as part of the presentation, just in case people hadn't seen them. Although, you know, I figured most people have seen the Gnome release videos. But yeah, I would say not very much changed from the first to the second. Not that I recall, anyway. How about for you, Britt? Was it better, worse? Needs improvement?
It's hard to be perfect, so.
Yes.
So I have a question from Sri. He asks, how long does a release video take?
You know, I don't count the hours because it would probably depress me. As long as it takes to make it entertaining, maybe put it that way. I try and add a bunch of little extra jokes in there to kind of, you know, just reward people for watching the video. If I were to guess, I guess it's a good it's probably good a week and a half worth of solid 8 to 10 hour days to do it. And most of that is the illustration and the animation work. Of course, that comes after the initial script is approved. So basically, when I write out the script, I'm committing to actually do all the things in the script. So that can go my way or not my way, depending on what I've said I do. But it gets done.
Question. Another person asks, what's the most challenging part of putting the video together?
The most challenging part of putting the video together, probably getting all the screenshots, all the screen captures. Because since, I mean, it was easier last time. Actually, that is something that did change from the first video to the second video, is that the GNOME developers quite kindly put together a custom boxes instance for me. So I could just spin up a machine that already had the latest version of GNOME and do all the screen recordings. Unfortunately, it didn't have internet access. So I kind of had to fake some things. And so maybe that was the most difficult part. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the heck out of making the video. So it doesn't seem like a lot, or like there wasn't anything where like, oh man, I hope I never have to do that again. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing it.
So another question: when a video is posted, we see that you're pretty active in the YouTube comments, you know, talking about the video, promoting the video. How do you balance kind of the feedback that you get with constructive criticism versus the negativity? How do you kind of internalize that and process?
I try and always be positive, even if they're severely negative. And I hope that kind of shows through in a lot of cases. If somebody is just out to bash Gnome, I post some examples of how they're absolutely wrong and they don't know what they're talking about, which is probably the worst thing that I do. I don't call people names or do any of that sort of thing. And if it's a valid criticism, like it could actually help the next video. Like even if it's like, this animation sucks. Okay, well, why does it suck? Because I want to know, right? If I can make it not suck or suck less, then then I want to, right? And that's maybe it's. I think a lot of that comes from working in the Inkscape project, because we do deal with like frustrated users a lot. And some of the criticism is a bit unkind. So I guess I have a thicker skin now because of that. But also, with each comment, I try and see what response would get a positive outcome. Because, I mean, there's no point in going off on flame wars with people. I'd rather be designing stuff. So, yeah.
So, kind of in partnership with the talk that Ryan just gave, we're in a unique position here where the professionals that are using the tools can also be a part of the communities building the tools. How do you think that relationship is special, and how is that different from like a traditional Adobe versus its users?
Oh, it's completely different. I mean, have you ever personally talked to an Adobe developer? No, and you never will. They always have I mean, I'm a longtime Adobe user, and they don't have a bug reporting system or anything like that. You just have to log on to their forums and hope that the automated system isn't automated, right? Hope that there's actually somebody to talk to on the other end. And I don't know how this has changed lately. Maybe it's been probably about 4 or 5 years since I've actually used Adobe Creative Suite as my main software for creative work. Maybe longer than that. Although that's making me feel old now. But yeah, I mean, being able to reach out to the developers and actually get involved in helping make things better. That's actually what got me into the Inkscape project, for example. So I hang out there all the time. I do their videos too. I also do some of the UX design and some troubleshooting bug reports and helping new users get to grips with the software. And I enjoy all that stuff. It's rewarding to me to be able to pay back what's been given to me, and as far as developer time and great software tools that I use every day.
So in that same vein, so when you're using proprietary software and it breaks in production, you can yell and scream at someone. Who do you yell and scream at when you are also writing the software?
Yeah, I just find a mirror and let that asshole have it. No, I mean, no, you don't. I mean, if you find a bug in the software, it's community software, right? So that means that you can do something about it. It means that you can actually help make it better. But you have to be patient. I mean, you can't go in and demoralize everybody in the project, which is easy to do, by the way. I mean, because that's maybe one of the drawbacks of being so open to the public, is that we're kind of at the mercy of whoever shows up and is complaining. So hopefully they treat us nicely. But sometimes they don't. And the first thing I usually try to do is I calm them down and make them feel listened to, because they do come. It's kind of like a shell shock, from being or from dealing with the proprietary companies. You have something wrong with the software, and all you have to talk to is somebody who doesn't know the software, who they hired, just to be a sounding board for you to yell at. They can't help you, and they may pass along the information, or they may not. Yeah, in the project, we want to make things better, and when you have that kind of mindset, as a designer who also uses the software that we develop, it's more of a project, right? If something's wrong with the project, or you don't go off and scream at somebody, you're like, this is a problem. How do we solve this? And then you post to a GitLab, or you try and see if other people are having the same problem. Or I made a video about how to what to do if you find something wrong with an Inkscape, like posting the question to GitLab, and how to formulate it so that it's a good information that we can act on quickly. And so that, it takes some training, but.
So in our last 2 minutes, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
So one of the keywords you said was patience. I think that using free software takes a lot of patience. What would you say to your design colleagues out there who just want a piece of software to work, and so they can get on with their lives? Like, they don't want to think about the software that they're using. I
would say to them, too bad, because everything has bugs. I mean, I've been using Adobe software for a long time, and it's never been bug-free. I mean, there might be more bugs in some open source software, especially newer releases, but that's kind of the name of the game for proprietary and non-proprietary software. It's a problem, or it's a programming problem, right? So I mean, if they're happy with what they have, and they're truly okay with, buying a new machine every time Windows gets slow, or or I'm only working on Mac OS on their hardware because they basically made it illegal not to use their operating system or on other hardware. Then maybe it's a good trade-off for you. And that's okay. I mean, we're not trying to force feed anybody our free software. I think most of the GNU software license, there was started out with this software is presented to everyone in hopes that it will be useful. And so if it's useful, then use it. And if it's not, then stick with whatever you like.
Great answer. Okay, and with that, Chris, we are done. Thank you so much for joining us at Guadec this year. And there might be some last-minute questions trickling into the chat, so please stick around. But other than that, thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.